Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for being here. If you are new to the channel, my name is Sophia and I make book related videos, mainly videos about literary fiction and mystery thriller books. However, a little bit of everything. And today I'm back with probably my most exciting video of the year so far, which is my top 5 books of 2025 to date. So I have read so many stellar books this year, all-time favorites, books that are on the pedestal with The Heart's Invisible Furies and All the Light We Cannot See. Maybe not quite there, but close. And I wanted to take a moment and just share some of my absolute favorite reads with you. I have read 60-ish books at the time that I am filming this video. My goal for the reading year was 50. So could this be the year I hit 100? That would be very exciting. Rambling a little bit, but that is to say I have read a lot of books and I have found a lot of really, really great ones. So I wanted to sit down and just bask in them for a little bit. As per usual, I'll be going from my 5th favorite book all the way to my favorite book at the end of the video. If you want some more deets about how the year is going so far, check out my mid-year book freakout tag, which I posted recently, where I talk about new favorite characters, favorite sequels, the character that I have a little bit of a crush on, all kinds of things. So I'll link you over there if you're interested in more of those details. But today, we're talking about the best of the best, my top 5 books of the year. Coming in at number 5, we have Brain on Fire by Susanna Cahalan. This is one of the first books that I read this year, and it did not disappoint. So this is a memoir about a 30s-ish something woman who was living in New York City. She was a reporter for the New York Post. She was living a pretty normal, average life until one day she started suffering symptoms of psychosis. She became paranoid that there were bed bugs in her apartment, and it kind of progressed from there. This book is about a month-long hospitalization at a New York medical center as they grappled with what disease she had, trying to diagnose her, doing a whole barrage of tests, and she really grappling with who she was as a person, not only during the hospitalization, but also as she came out. She says that the recovery process was even more difficult than the hospitalization itself in some ways. This was super heartbreaking. The audiobook of this was phenomenal. It was, of course, narrated by Susanna Cahalan herself, and I would really, really recommend enjoying this story in that way. It is about hope, advocacy, finding yourself in the darkest moments, the pit holes of the American healthcare system, which there are many, but also the triumphs of it, and I loved it. 5 stars. Next, we have Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. Also Normal People. However, Normal People I have read before, so I'm just going to include Conversations with Friends in this video. I'll link you to where I've talked about Normal People before and also my Reading Sally Rooney vlog. This is a novel about 2 teenage friends who are girls who become embroiled in the life of an elderly, my-aged couple, like in their 30s, who are more wealthy and kind of more established than the girls. It's about the relationship between all of these different characters. It's about how the relationship between them are both symbiotic but also contradictory. It's about how relationships can be shared. This is really frustrating to read in a lot of ways because it challenges a lot of the things that we think about relationships, particularly that there's a label on them and they're shared between 2 people. It also definitely challenges the dichotomous nature of them, that you're either in one or not in one, and this kind of muddies and grays the lines of all of those things. I thought this was a stunning coming-of-age story and such a deep iteration of a rinse and repeat story that I've read so many times, but with a really new, fresh perspective. Next is The Story of a Heart by Dr. Rachel Clark. This was a book that I was introduced to by the Women's Prize for Nonfiction. The tagline for this book is 2 families linked by one heart, written by a palliative care physician. So it's about a 9-year-old girl named Kira who unfortunately was in a tragic car accident, and because of the amount of time that she was down without CPR, she suffered brain death. her family made the really difficult decision to donate her organs, and her heart gets matched to a young boy named Max. He has been having kind of a complex series of symptoms, but basically worsening fatigue, not gaining weight, and shortness of breath. And he is diagnosed with a dilated cardiomyopathy and essentially needs a heart transplant in order to survive. It is about Kira's heart in Max's body and the intertwining between these two families. Not only is it about this absolutely heart-wrenching story, but it's about the scientific figures and discoveries that allowed this to happen. Where were the first transplants happen, and how kind of pediatric intensive care and all of the carers experienced this story as well. I thought it was so well balanced, definitely not info dumpy in any way, shape, or form. I thought the way that these more scientific portions of the story were mixed in really well with this heartfelt narrative was just immaculate. I could tell that this was written by a palliative care physician who spent so much time with patients in really difficult situations like these. And honestly, it deserved to win the Women's Prize for Nonfiction. Not that I've read all the books, but I loved it. And I think it is a very excellent nonfiction book memoir if you are looking for one. Next up, we have Why Fish Don't Exist by Lulu Miller, a book that completely broke my heart, stole it, shattered it into a million pieces when I did not think it was going to do that. So this is the author's story, and it's really about her upbringing, struggling with her mental health, with depression, and her slow kind of obsession with this scientist called David Starr Jordan. David Starr Jordan was a taxonomist and a collector who kind of was in the 1800s, and she admires him so much for his diligence, his dedication to collecting different species and figuring out how they're related to each other. However, the more she digs into him, she uncovers really heart-wrenching secrets, terrifying secrets about him that really change the way that she is able to see him as a person, and therefore able to see herself as a person because of how much she looked up to him. The ending of this book was chef's kiss stunning, one of the best endings to a book I have ever read. This is a book about science, about self-discovery, blurring the lines, how nobody really fits in a category. And it was incredible. And it would be my favorite book of the year if it wasn't for the next book I'm about to talk to you guys about. All right, and my favorite book of the year is Foster by Claire Keegan, which is not a surprise if you've watched my mid-year book freakout tag. This is a very short 92-page book told from the perspective of a young girl. At the beginning of the book, her father drops her off to live with some relatives called the Kinsellas because their family essentially does not have enough resources to care for her. They have a new child in the home, and they are go live with these relatives, and essentially the relatives foster her, hence the title. She is fostered in this family throughout a summer. It's about her growing into this family, in part missing her own, growing into herself, the tragedy of this whole situation, but also the joy of it. I think this is the best book I've ever read from a child's perspective. I'm a pediatrician. It is so, so hard to grasp and write a narrative in a cohesive and realistic way from a young child. And this, chef's kiss, perfection. Did it so well. It is very emotional, but not forced emotional, which I very much appreciated. And the attention to detail, the value of every single word in here was just perfection. One of my new favorite books of all time. Of course, a 5 stars. All right, guys, so those are all of my favorite books that I've read so far in 2025. I will be very curious to see which of these make it to my favorite books of the year video at the end of the year. Probably many of them. If not many of them, I'm really excited for the next half of my reading year. Please let me know in the comment section down below what your favorite book of the year is so far, and if you've read any of these books, I would love to know. And with that, I will see you guys very soon with another video. Bye.